Hi everyone, hi class. Welcome to week 4 of Philosophy 103 Informal Logic here at Ashford University. Um, so this week I want this video to focus on helping everyone to make sure that they're fulfilling all the basic requirements of the discussion assignments for this week. Last week there were many people who it seemed like they just really they didn't pay enough attention to what the discussion was asking them to do. So last week it was asking you to identify at least 3 different um, fallacies in discussion 1, and then in the second one it was asking you, discussion 2, it was asking you to identify 2 different fallacies in the media. So a lot of times what people did last week is they would give an example, they'd give 3 different examples, but then they wouldn't identify which fallacies they thought their examples were doing. And the discussion prompt clearly asks you to do that. So I just want to reiterate and make very clear what this week's assignments are asking you to do, just as a reminder for you, so that when you're developing your answer for your discussion post, you'll be sure to do it so you can get credit for doing the entire assignment. So this week, the first discussion post, you're going to create a hypothesis. So a hypothesis, as you've learned from your reading, is essentially it's a testable theory. So you'll come up with a theory about any topic that you want, and then you'll decide how you would go about testing that theory. And you'll do that either by confirming the hypothesis, which is the traditional scientific method, or disconfirming the hypothesis using Karl Popper's strategy of disconfirmation. And you can choose either one. It's completely up to you. You don't have to. You're not forced to pick one over the other. You just need to pick one and then demonstrate how you would go about either confirming your hypothesis under the traditional method or disconfirming your hypothesis under Karl Popper's strategy. All right, so that's 2 steps right there so far for discussion 1. 1, you have to create a hypothesis. 2, you have to either confirm it or disconfirm it, and show how you would do that using one of those 2 methods. All right, and now the third thing that you have to do is discuss which of those 2 are better and why. So let's say that you formulate a hypothesis and you decide to show how you would confirm your hypothesis using the scientific method. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to say that the confirmation method is better. You could use your experiment to show that that's actually the weaker method, and you could say, I actually think that Karl Popper's strategy is better, and here's why. I just want you to be aware of the fact that you're not obligated to think that the method you chose is the one that you think is the best. So you can choose one or the other to show your hypothesis and how you would test it. But in your discussion of which one is better, you can still choose either one. But those are 3 steps that you need to do and fulfill in order to get like basic credit and basic points. And then after you get to that basic level, you'll be graded on how well you do above that. But you have to fulfill each of those 3 things in order to get full credit. And I just want to make that really explicit and make that understandable so that people don't miss out on easy points. Just like last week, where people weren't even attempting to identify which fallacy their examples were committing. People missed out on an easy way to get some more points added onto their final score for that discussion post. So just wanted to reiterate that. The second discussion post for this week is the crossroads of logic and ethics. And this week's question and discussion prompt, it's always one of the, I feel like it's always one of the most popular discussion prompts that that we have in this class, based on previous classes. People really have, I was going to say, a good time. It's not so much that I think these types of discussions can be fun, but it's that it's very challenging. It asks you it asks you to challenge yourself, and sometimes doing that can be kind of fun. I mean, that's that whole intellectual process can be fun when we're arguing and debating and trying to think about what's right or wrong. And that's really what ethics is about, is trying to think about what's the best way to do things, what's the best way to live our lives. So the scenario, and I'll spell it out just a little bit, is that she's hypothetically, Mary is forced to let her children go hungry, right? And she's got 2 kids. She can't find a job, and she's got to feed her children. All right. And in the scenario, she cannot get any government assistance, no food stamps. She can't go digging through the trash. She can't get help from her family. We're in what's called a closed universe of facts. That's where, for the sake of argument, in order to test which arguments are better for what, you close the universe and don't let any other facts in, and that allows us to focus on the main issues at hand. Now, of course, in the real world, once you come to a conclusion about these central issues, then you do expand into these other areas, but it really helps to kind of focus our discussion on these main issues. And it can really lead to some great discussion and argumentation that's productive amongst you and your classmates. So what you're being asked to do is based on all those assumptions, and that's all they are, is assumptions. We know this isn't the real world. This is just this is a discussion online. You have to choose. Should she steal to feed her children, or should she not steal and let her children go hungry? And this is another point of contention in previous classes. I think it's safe to say that what that means is, that should she let her children go hungry, and should she let them perish? That's the kind of that's what makes this such a drastic and such a powerful conflict and a challenging topic for us to deal with, because you're dealing with some really emotional issues, life and death issues, and moral choices, all wrapped up into one scenario. So I'll just repeat it. So given all those assumptions, we're assuming they're all true, you have to decide, pick a position, whether or not you personally agree with it or not. And that's also another thing. You pick one side. Either she has to steal to feed her children, or she has to let them go hungry and perish. All right? And you pick one side and you argue for it. Now, let's say that you believe that it's always wrong to steal, right? But I would encourage you, even if that's what you feel like, if you think that Mary should never steal and she should let her children go hungry, I think it could be very helpful to you to challenge yourself and pick that side and argue for it anyway, because what that does is it helps us become better thinkers, better critical thinkers. When you take a position that you really, in your heart, disagree with, but then you try to understand the other side, and you try to make their argument for them as best you can, that's what really improves your critical thinking skills. And it doesn't mean that you should back off the position that you hold in your heart or that you believe in, but it will help you, after this class is over, come up with an even better argument for the position that you do believe in. And this is what people who train in argumentation do all the time. I know training to be a lawyer right now, one of the most challenging classes I ever had was a teacher. She would ask you a question. She would ask a question and ask your opinion, and you would give your opinion, and she would ask you to argue to support it. And then as soon as you were done talking, she'd say, "All right, now pick the other side of the argument and argue for that." And she'd put you on the spot. And that is a very challenging, but I think fulfilling way of being able to think critically and to use your new logical skills and help them develop by taking on positions that you don't even agree with, but still being able to argue strongly for them. And I do realize that this is a very controversial issue because, normally stealing is always wrong. We always think that it's wrong to take someone else's property. On the other hand, it's obviously wrong to let your children starve. So you're faced with, and many students have pointed this out in the past, you're faced with a false dichotomy. But so this isn't a persuasive argument to convince you of anything. You can see how you can still use a fallacy of the false dichotomy to engender good discussion that can lead to better argumentation. So I'm really looking forward to reading your post this week. If you have any other questions, again, please contact me. And I hope everyone is doing well. I know that I've had some contact from people who said they've been sick and who've had deaths in the family, and I really feel for you. And I'll try to be as flexible as I can with my late policy, but it really has to be set in stone so that it's fair for everyone. And that's the reason why I'm so strict with my late policy, because if I'm not strict in applying it, it just won't be fair to people who are still turning their things in on time. So that's why I require verification too if you have an event take place in your life. But anyways, again, I hope you're well. I look forward to reading your posts, and until next week, I'll see you then. Bye.